Yet again, people in the UK are a little bit concerned that there's yet another law which makes the government your mummy, sitting behind your shoulder as you type things online to make sure that you're actually playing nice with the other kids. And if you don't, you go to jail. Now, here's why this is actually a good thing, and why people that are free speech advocates in the UK should be absolutely thrilled that they want to add this to the online safety bill. So, up until now, the bill was just punishing people that would be grossly offensive or indecent online. But now, they want to add likely psychological harm. So it doesn't even need to cause psychological harm. It just needs to likely cause psychological harm. In other words, the judge is going to mind read. He's going to be Charles Xavier, and he's going to peer into your brain to see if you have been psychologically harmed by something online. Okay, now, here's how you can actually fight against this law if you don't like it. You need to use Saul Alinsky's tactics, which I don't know, but for some reason they seem like poison for the right. They really hate Saul Alinsky. They think he's an evil man. Now, maybe he is. I'm not God. I can't weigh his soul, but what I do know is that what he wrote is very effective. And if you're against this type of thing, you need to start behaving in a way that you can project power even though you have none. Now, one of Saul Alinsky's tactics, which is very effective, is to use the rules of those in power against them. So what you need to understand is that while you hate this type of legislation, it exists because there are other people in society who love this type of legislation. Every single law exists because people in your society support it. And it's those people you need to help to see the light. How do you help them to see the light? You use this law that's not meant to be applied against them, and you make it so that it is applied against them. Because you have some people in society who are very busy individuals, and they don't really have the time to notice how specific laws influence other people. And only when those laws are applied to them do they realize, oh, this might be a problem. Let's change it. So, you need to help these people understand why these laws are bad. Here's an example. You have the head of Novara, which is a very big left-wing media in the United Kingdom. You probably know Ash Sarkar. She appears there frequently. And their stance is that it's not censorship when a private company decides to remove you from its platform. You don't have an inalienable right to a Twitter account. In other words, I don't agree with Twitter's terms of service. I think they're shit. I don't like them. But there are other people in society that love Twitter terms of service. People who benefit from Twitter's terms of service because they're not applied against them. The terms of service are not applied equally. So these people are like an aristocracy. They are above the TOS. As such, they don't care that the TOS is bad. But every now and then, there is a glitch, there is an oopsie in the system, and they get censored. So when they get censored, already they change their mind. They realize, oh, hold on a little bit. So this TOS that I was supporting isn't just being pushed against other people. It can also be pushed against me. Oh, well, that's a problem. That is a big problem because I'm a media company and I have to express myself in order to get ratings. I can't have this weird policy where I don't know what I can say, what I can't say, and then risk being banned like the average Joe. Now, usually these people get unbanned immediately. And in the case of the Novara company, yes, it took like 1 or 2 hours for them to get unbanned. But it seemed that they may have learned a lesson. And it's honestly the only time in 2021 when I see progressive people being for free speech is when they get censored. That is it. That is like the only time they make the free speech argument. I have tried numerous other ways. I have tried talking with them, reasoning with them, explaining to them. Nothing works. The only thing that works, unfortunately, the only last result is when the rules are applied to them as well. And if you disagree with me on this, and you're like, oh, but morality, but censoring people, I would never. you would sound like a person that's a hippie in World War II when the Germans were dropping bombs, and you would scream and say, "Oh, I don't know what an airplane is. I don't know what an anti-aircraft gun is, but I just want them to stop bombing." Okay? Like, I don't even care about what you have to add to the conversation. I really don't. So you need to make that happen. So how can you make that happen in the case of the online safety bill? It's very simple, really. There is a type of bullying which takes place online that is far more psychologically damaging than Skullfuck47 calling you a poopy head, than Marcy Tracy calling you fat. I mean, these are very psychologically damaging by themselves, I'm pretty sure. But there is something that is actually far more impactful. And that is when people gather around on Discord or on the Twitter or on Reddit and try to get someone fired. Or when the mainstream media is trying to dox someone in order for other people to go to their houses. That happens rarely, but I have seen it happening, especially with blue check marks on Twitter. That, in my opinion, is very psychologically damaging because that moves away from online. Like, up until this point, you can just turn it off. You can just turn the computer off. But if you have a group of people that's trying to get you fired, then what can you do? It doesn't even matter if they're right or not. They can just call your boss, and your boss is fed up with getting 100 phone calls, so they fire you without even looking at the event or without even trying to see if you did something offensive or not. Case in point, the Dave Chappelle thing. If Dave Chappelle was in the UK right now and people were trying to get him cancelled for his jokes, well, doesn't that cause psychological distress to him? Doesn't that make him feel unsafe? Of course it does, right? So he could sue. And that is what people need to stop doing. They need to start suing whatever they feel psychological distress. I'm not saying you should do frivolous lawsuits. No, by all means, stay within the law. What I am saying is that now the law can protect you as well. If you actually feel that you're being psychologically abused by people on Twitter and you are a UK citizen, you can sue them. And you should sue them. And I think like you can even, if you don't have money for it, like you're in a precarious financial situation, you can probably start a GoFundMe. Or there might be even lawyers that do it pro bono when it comes to these things. The only thing is that they have to use emotional, psychological, or physical harm to the likely audience. So in other words, a judge is going to play Charles Xavier and is going to mind read to see if you suffered any psychological harm. In my opinion, if someone is trying to get you fired over something, you probably are suffering psychological harm. Kind of reminds me when I was a kid and I was on my dad's laptop and there were elite hackers on the internet who would say, I'm going to hack your computer and delete all your stuff. See, if I was in the UK, those kids would have been criminals because they actually did psychological harm to me. I actually thought that they were going to delete stuff on my dad's computer and I would get my ass whooped. Or if the teacher would say to a student, I am going to fail you tomorrow if you don't do your homework. I mean, that causes psychological harm. I don't want to fail, but I don't want to do my homework either. What do you do? All right? So it's a very interesting law, very subjective. It's up to the interpretation of the person if they are getting psychological harm or not, which is why in the UK you end up with ridiculous things where a dog is accused of a hate crime. Yes, in the UK, thanks to progressive legislation, we have managed to travel back in time where in a medieval society, animals would be trialed and sometimes even executed because they believe that animals actually know what they're doing. But with the progressive legislation that it is in the UK, the only thing it takes for a hate crime to exist is to be published online and at the same time to have the victim say that they've been offended. That's all it takes. The victim claims they've been offended, so even if a dog does it, well, it's the doggo's fault. Shouldn't have done it. Dog is a hateful creature that has done hate scheisser. Now, with that said, there is also something interesting in this rule. Apparently, it needs to be false. Like, that is something very interesting. So, the message needs to likely cause psychological harm, but at the same time, the new offense will focus on social media posts where there is intention that the victim feels a genuine sense of fear that the threat will be carried out. In other words, getting fired is a threat. This aims at the distressing snowball effect of online abuse where a user can jeer each other on and cause distress to the victim. A knowingly false communication offense will be created that will criminalize those who send post or message they know to be false with the intention to cause emotional, psychological, or physical harm. So in other words, J.K. Rowling, who's getting canceled on Twitter by other people when they say she is committing transgenocide, and I have seen people say this on Twitter, that's a lawsuit. They would have to prove that in court. I don't know if they can. I mean, maybe they have the arguments. I personally think they may not be able to do that because that's misinformation. So every time you read something where someone tries to get you fired or cause any type of psychological distress, and they're lying, they're exaggerating, that they're using bombastic speech, or they're taking things out of context, anything that you know they're saying it's not true, lawsuit, baby. This rule is meant to protect you, right? You're a British citizen. This is not a beating stick for the left, even though it looks like it. No. The British government decided that it doesn't want its citizens to be subjected to psychological online abuse. Perfect. You are a British citizen. You now have the right not to be subjected to online abuse. So when you are subjected to online abuse, you should press charges. Because this is why the law is made, right? Laws are made for every single citizen that lives under a country, not just for the activists. And it should be applied to anything. If they try to get you fired, if they are harassing you with naughty words, anything like that. You can get financial compensation for this, unironically. You should become like an American, know your rights, and start applying them. I guarantee to you, if even 10% of people apply this, you will have this law being thrown out within less than a year. Now, I waited until the end to talk about something else because I want to see who actually watches my videos till the end before commenting. Because I'm pretty sure I will already get comments like, oh no, V, you're stupid. This law is actually to enforce digital ID. Social media ID, V. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're... So if I see that in the comment, it means you haven't watched my video until the end, so I don't care about your comments. I'll put your name on the list. I'll be like Santa Claus. Put your name on it. This person doesn't watch my videos till the end, so he doesn't know what I'm talking about. His criticism is made by an ignorant person. But anyway, right, so in the UK, there has been for a while an attempt to push an ID for online. They tried to do it with porn sites. It was to protect the children, of course. So whenever you wanted to log online to see some naughty things, you'd have to buy a government pass, a license, and you needed to show some identification to have the license, and then you'd put the key into the website so you can access it. I don't know what happened with that because it went quiet. But what I do know is that it wouldn't surprise me if they said, okay, online harm is a problem. So in order to punish people that are acting irresponsibly online, there needs to be some form of verification, like in China, so that they can tie the person to the online account. Now, at this point, it's just a conspiracy theory, but take into account we live in 2021, and the difference between a conspiracy theory and reality is give or take 3 months. So if that actually happens, if they actually want to pass a legislation like that, then it depends on what the people in the UK think. Because you may actually have people in the UK that generally want this. And if you have the majority of people, or even a small vocal minority that has a lot of power who want this, then there's not much you can do. They're going to pass it anyway. But if the overwhelming amount of people don't want this, then you can actually fight back by writing mail to your politicians. Until then, what you need to do is to convince people why tying your online account to your actual person is a bad idea. You need to think of reasons, and then you need to start talking with people. One example would be that it's very easy to blackmail people with this system. So if you're in charge of the governmental institution, if you're the bureaucrat that has access to the information of people online, you can find various people in society and you can say, okay, we found out that you did something bad. We can make it go away if you do what we want. This is how politics works in Eastern Europe. And if it works in Eastern Europe, I don't see why it wouldn't work in the United Kingdom. The only reason it didn't happen in the United Kingdom is because up until now, you didn't have a system of government control like it existed in Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe, we lived under socialism, and the government knew everything about you. When the government knows everything about you, that's tyranny. When you know everything about the government, that's democracy. So the idea that the government should have access to your private life, which, let's be honest, I know the left is trying to say that online is public, but I find it very difficult to understand how typing on a keyboard in your own underwear in your bedroom should be considered like it's public official document. And if you say something 10 years ago, it should be considered as if it makes people angry today. There's no statute of limitation on jokes or stuff you say. So I have seen all of this, and given that, I would not want to have someone's identity tied to online, because they could have made the joke when they're a teenager, and then you can have people blackmailing them. It's like, hey, I know that joke you said, and if you like your job, you need to do what I tell you, because otherwise we're going to expose the joke. It's very similar to what happens with Destiny on Twitch. Like, he did a lot of edgy stuff, and all the stuff is now coming out as Destiny talks against the left. Up until now, it was silent, like no one was bringing anything up. Only when Destiny is not, right? So, there is precedent for this. Like, you can see how people already act organically for this. Why do you want to institutionalize it? Why do you want everyone to behave like that? So that is my low IQ take on this issue. If you like this video, please consider sharing it around. And if you like my channel, you can buy me a cup of coffee to keep me caffeinated to work deep into the hours of the night. There's a link into the pinned comment section where you can click, and it will give you the great window of opportunity to buy me a coffee. So I'll see you all in the comment section. Take care.